Hey guys, Camper15 back at it with another video for you guys, and I have returned. I have returned with My Hero Academia manga chapter review for you guys. It's been such a long time since I did a My Hero Academia manga chapter review. You know, I don't know what happened, man. Work's just always got in the way, and I would always be too tired or exhausted on my Sundays because I always wanted to rest up because really I only have technically 3 days, but then you get to Sunday and you're like, oh shit, I need to rest some more so I don't have to go back to work. But you get my point, you know. And to be honest, I just kind of slacked on My Hero when it came to uploading content when it came to the manga. Obviously, I do talk about the anime, but you know, I slacked. And by the time I knew I was way too far back with the manga, I thought it was just kind of not worth it to do maybe a manga chapter. Now, personally, I probably should have just did it, manga chapter review, basically picking up where I currently read and just did a quick summary about what happened. But look, I'm here. And the fun fact is the manga is probably going to be ending in like 4 or 5 chapters from now because we finally got the conclusion to the fight between Deku slash Shigaraki slash All for One, but it's mostly was Deku versus All for One, really. And basically, this chapter basically finished. This is, I guess you could say, the beginning of the end for MHA. You know, we get the ending, you know, the complete annihilation of All for One, you know, and things like that. We'll see, but anyways, let's get to it. This manga chapter is manga chapter 423, titled One for All versus All for One. Now, for people that have, well, for me, just catching people up, he's running on basically the little bit of the little last of the flames of One for All left because basically he got the quirk stolen from him. Now, at first, I didn't want to believe it, but it's sad the case that he did believe it. So people who are predicting like, oh, I could see Deku losing One for All at the end of the story, well, you might end up getting your wish. But Deku was charging ahead, and with the help of his friends, he was able to get there, which, fun fact, you know, in the season 7 opening, they have that montage where he's running alongside his friends to get to Shigaraki. And it's funny because it's like, okay, they completely hinted at what they did in that one animation, still in that opening, completely hints at what they did in the past few chapters with essentially Deku running to finish All for One once and for all. Now, what happens is Deku goes into charge, and he's basically sending out one single punch. And All for One's doing his inner monologue. Now, he goes on to say, when the boy drove Yoichi and the successors into the core, it wasn't only my spirit that was a lost cause, but this body as well. Now, the thing is, Deku, he ends up saying, after just 2 years, it's a little stronger than what the ape could deliver. You're facing the combined power of all 9 of us. Now, All for One, while he's doing his inner monologue, he's also thinking, is like, well, this body's breaking down because right now, this body, the Shigaraki body he's obviously using, it's breaking down, and he's using like multiple quirks to try to hold this body together. And he looks like a complete like freaking animal, crazy, like the dude's breaking down. So basically, All for One's coming up with the idea like, look, this body's basically done for. I need to give my quirk, All for One, to another body, which is either one of the surrounding heroes. But then he thinks of the idea, I need to freaking give my quirk away to Deku and take over his body, because his body can literally be perfect for me, and when I take over his body, I can continue. So we kind of see how All for One on his last will is trying to find another host to take over because, well, the Shigaraki body he used basically finished its course. Like, he can't even regenerate anymore. His body's just decaying away, essentially. Now, the other heroes are making the mention that his body is crumbling away. And Kirishima's like, Midori must have pulled it off. Now, again, like I said, All For One's using the quirks to hold his body back together. Um, and Deku makes a mention of that. Now, All For One goes on to say, I haven't achieved anything yet. No one can rob me of what's mine. Only my dream gets to come true. I won't pay it forward. Nobody gets to pick up my torch. The Demon Lord is singular and absolute. Um, and basically that's when he's like, I only need to repeat the process like I did with Tomura. And that's the whole thing about taking over Deku's body. Now he goes and say the voice is suitable now that he's without one for all. Anyone will do really. I'll grant them my quirk. Be with it to claim a new vessel. Now Deku charges in for the final attack and he's like, you're done, All For One. Now you have it to where Aizawa was like Midori because he feels like something's coming up. Next thing you know, you have it to where Kurogiri comes out of nowhere, and it's actually the essence of Shirakumo in there. Basically, he goes on to say, like, Shota, Yamada, sorry, but I gotta do what I have to do. I was basically born to protect Tomura Shigaraki. So he ends up making a void of what is left that he can do. He makes this void to prevent Deku from getting captured by All For One, and essentially getting the quirk forced upon the All For One quirk forced upon him. Because if that was the case, well then it's game over, because then that means he basically will have all the quirks and it will be within Deku's body and everything. And basically you have it to where President Mike, he gets pretty emotional because he's like, I should have figured you were going to do this, because you're always going to reach out a helping hand. Now he goes on to tell All For One, he's like, you need to give back Tomura Shigaraki. By then, and then he also adds on with the fact that his friends await him. Next thing you know, Bakugo comes out of freaking nowhere, and we find out the man was using his mouth to fire off explosions. Like, and President Mike's like, dude, you should be in the hospital. But you know what happens is Bakugo goes on to say, like, Todoroki helped him out and everything, and basically he's like, listen, finish him off, Izuku, but you know, he goes on to say, but don't you dare let me surpass you, essentially saying don't get stronger than me, even though technically he'll be stronger than Deku because Deku has no quirks now. And I think he kind of helps Deku be able to push a little bit further and quicker to All For One to finish the deal. And he goes on to say and Deku goes on to say, All For One, I can't look, I don't know, All For One, I can't look past what you've done. But you're not some sort of monster beyond all understanding. Now, All For One's like, no, stop this. He goes on to say, you're no demon lord. And basically Deku goes on to say, All For One, you are just a lonely, truly lonely man. Now, we get like an inner like vestige world of All For One, and he's looking at this little bit of an ember, and he sees that it's Yoichi. Now Yoichi starts talking, and he goes and say, Midoriya managed to adjust that violent transfer in just such a way that the barest fragments would remain intact. Then the Renaissance with his ember awakened me to do right by these last shreds of me, also that he could complete one for all as we were meant to be. Now, All For One just screams up, talking about how he doesn't care and that none of it matters and that he doesn't want Yoichi to fade away. And basically, Yoichi's like, well, too bad, brother, but my time's up. And you have it to where All For One's like, you can't go. You're mine. Look upon me. Let me see your eyes. And basically, Yoichi, as his embers, as the flames is basically dying out, he goes and say, brother, I couldn't guide you down the right path. What Midoriya conceived for us here is our final salvation. At the end of it all. Now, All For One is like, no, I won't allow it. I love you. I love you like no other. I'm hopeless without you. I'm nothing. And Yoichi responds by that statement saying, it's time to pay the price for exploiting all for yourself, because he awakened just more than me. And you get this amazing panel where you see the other One For All users, and then even Shigaraki, and you get this one full page spread where in the Vestige world, Shigaraki alongside the other One For All members are attacking All For One from the inside, while Deku is, punching obviously the physical body on the outside, and it basically comes to a clash. And you just have it to where you have the clash of Deku and Shigaraki's hands coming together, and you have Deku talking to Shigaraki one last time, and Shigaraki goes to say, "I thought I was annihilated beyond hope when Master swallowed me up, but you somehow kept me tethered from kept you somehow kept me tethered, kept me from fading, right, Grandma?" He goes on to say, "I stole my body back from Master, but I never managed to destroy a thing. In the end, maybe I really am just a crying kid like you said. I couldn't even destroy your hands." Now, Deku responds to this statement by saying, "Everything you did, I couldn't let it stand. That's why I fought. I wanted to stop you. I wanted to stop you. I wanted you to stop yourself. I kept to keep that grief and misery from spreading any further." And Shigaraki's just like, huh. He goes on to say, "Izuku Midoriya, if Spinner survived this, tell him that even to the bitter end, Tomura Shigaraki kept fighting to destroy." And Deku added on by saying, "It's already been destroyed." And I'm guessing he must be mentioning, like, well, you did what you did. You basically destroyed Hero Society, and it's probably more than likely going to change Hero Society for the better, to be honest, and everything. And that's where the chapter ends. The sun, basically, the clouds all dissipate, and the sun is gleaming out on Deku, and Deku's basically up in the air like this in a pose after punching, and he basically, while Shigaraki's body is completely disintegrated, and Deku did it. He now will probably be given the title as like the greatest hero, even though he says like we all became the greatest heroes, but really, you know, we knew from the start of the series, like Deku was saying like, this is the story of how I became the greatest hero, and things like that. So that's where the chapter ends off. I believe there's going to be a break. I think there was a break next week. That's what the unofficial translations I think said, but look, this is a solid chapter, a pretty emotional chapter. Now I'm gonna talk on some topics before I get out of here. Now I know I think I know there's some MHA fans that feel like Shigaraki got done dirty and he didn't get his final comeuppance, but honestly, I think this is a nice send-off for Shigaraki, because really Shigaraki accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, and that's basically try to he didn't accomplish his feats in terms of destroying the world, but he basically destroyed, I guess you can say, the society of how Hero Society was built. And obviously after this moment, you know, Hero Society is going to change for new. Like the current heroes are going to see like, okay, what happened in the past didn't work. We got to do this a different approach, and obviously we're going to have the young next generation basically we're going to have the next generation essentially take over and build upon our new teachings and things like that. On top of it, really, if Shigaraki was still alive and he were to get the route of redemption where he ends up, like, I guess redeeming for everything he's done, you look at this, the man probably would have been like put in prison for freaking life with what he did, because excuse me, he completely took over Japan, and he killed a lot of innocent people and everything. And obviously if he were to still be alive after this war, well, then he'd be locked up for life, and shit, you can even make the argument he could be put on if they could find a way, probably be put to like death or something for that alone. But you know, I think this is a nice way to send off his character and write his character off in a way, because, you know, it was just from the jump, you know, it was just another character that was kind of misused. I wouldn't say misused, but was kind of like tricked and controlled by All For One. He ended up growing out of that shell, but the thing is, once All For One gave him his ability, his All For One ability, you know, All For One, the greedy pig as he was, you know, he ended up taking over Tomura's body again and basically tried to hide that Tenko Shimura personality within him, and tried to use that rage and that hate that Shigaraki built up for his own end goal. But at the end of the day, Shigaraki did do what he wanted to accomplish, and he did temporarily destroy, really, mostly Hero Society. So he destroyed the thing that basically wronged him in the past. And yeah, and look, Shigaraki, in my opinion, he's a top 10 anime villain or a top 10 shonen villain. He's definitely up there. His character development is definitely up there. Definitely one of the few villains that's tragic, you know. And I do like the fact in this scene, like, he doesn't really regret what he did. He's like, yeah, I still would have did it regardless, but you know, it is what it is, you know, and things like that. So yeah, now him and Deku's, you know, um like Knuckles ends up coming together in that one panel before his body completely disintegrates. Now obviously Deku is probably quirkless now, and he has got no more One for All left in him. Now again, like I said, barring the thing is, because we saw Deku and Shigaraki have that final clash and the blood splatter between the both of them, my only best guess is, who knows? What if Deku is not quirkless, but he still but he ends up getting One for All back, because we don't know if that's the thing, if he's gonna be quirkless by the complete end. I personally hope he's not quirkless, but if he is quirkless, I guess it's a good write-off send way, because really, you know, it's like, it's weird. It's a weird thing, and I'll talk about it in a bit with All for One in the Yoichi scene. But it's like One for All and All for One, they kind of are like yin and yang. They need one to exist. And the fact that, well, now they're both destroyed, that's the thing. But, you know, at that last pit, Shigaraki said he took control of his body back. So I wonder, what if he retransferred One for All, you know, right back to Deku, and said, here's the last thing I'll do for you. Here's your quirk back that I stole from you, because you're gonna need it, or something like that. I don't know. I highly doubt it, but it would be pretty cool if he ended up getting the quirk back. And maybe it's just not the quirk, all the other quirks he got. Maybe it's just maybe the stockpiling aspect, the strength enhancing portion of it. But who knows? I highly doubt it. I feel like Deku will be quirkless ending the story, but if he ends up realizing he got his quirk back and One for All back, and he's just like, wait a second, I got One for All back, and then he realizes, oh shit, Shigaraki must have gave me his quirk back, gave me the quirk back. And if he has all the users right then and there, but I guess maybe the only main person that's gone is Yoichi, I guess that would honestly probably somewhat make sense, because Yoichi maybe used the last of his embers, and it's kind of the thing of like, well, we made this complete. But I think more 9 out of 10 times Deku's probably gonna be quirkless and he ain't gonna have One for All. But if Horikoshi decides to give him One for All, well, you know, all right, I guess that's fine. And he can truly be the last user of One for All, and things like that. So yeah, it was interesting to find out that apparently All for One loved his brother Yoichi. But I did watch another review and everything a few days ago, and basically I think his name was Anime Uproar, and he made a good point in the fact, like, All for One maybe did love his brother, but he didn't really truly know how to express that love, and he expressed that love in basically a dictator controlling type of way, of basically forcing him to do all this and that and everything, and held him in captivity. And the thing is, he probably just didn't know how to express that love, what a brotherly love should be, what a family-like love should be. His only way and his only meaning of love, you know, is really just, hey, it's being controlling. Because listen, the man was a controlling individual, and he would just tell people to do, and if they didn't do it, well, he would just have a hold over them, and he would take these people's quirks and kill them and do all these detestable things. And even just in the terms of loving his brother, he just loved his brother as if he was like a slave to him, and he just basically abused him and did all these things, but he thought he was doing that necessity out of love. So it was pretty interesting to see that he loved his brother. And then maybe that also caters to the fact that, you know, listen, you know, Deku made the mention he's a lonely man. You know, dude was lonely because guess what? He only really served purpose for only himself. He didn't really go out there, connect with other people, make friends and, you know, allies. Even when he was doing all the evil things he was doing, he just saw people as expendable. He just saw people as pawns, people as things in his game to have world dominance and basically do what he wanted to become, which was a demon lord. He just viewed people as just game board pieces really, and he didn't see people as people or people as his comrades. Like that's the one thing about Shigaraki. Shigaraki never viewed the League of Villain members as like game board pieces. He actually viewed those people as his allies, as his friends, and he cared about them too, and he cared about the goals that they wanted to achieve, and obviously they cared about the goals that Tomer wanted to achieve. Like before he disappeared, he talked about Spinner. Like Spinner was somebody that was close to him, as opposed to All For One. He didn't really care. He would have he just saw the people around him throughout the course of the years that he was there as just really just pawns in the way, people that will help me further my goal. You know, we saw with the Lady Nagant stuff, many chapters ago, and even what you saw in season 6 of the anime. He just saw Lady Nagant as a pawn to help him potentially get closer to capturing Deku and bringing One for All to him. And then when Lady Nagant didn't do what he was asked of him and basically turn back to the good side because she realized because Deku got to her, he was like, oh, well, that's too bad. I guess I'm gonna have to blow you up to freaking get rid of you because you didn't serve my purpose, essentially. So, it makes sense. You look through it and you can see why All For One why Deku said he's a lonely person and everything. And I will say, I wish it was kind of more delved in terms of like this final battle status to get more of like a true accurate thing of like how maybe internally All For One felt. It would have been nice and more appreciative to kind of get an understanding in maybe the All For One flashback of like, okay, we it's established that he does love Yoichi, but he loves him in a sick, twisted way, essentially. And it would have been cool to see like and get backstory for him, just truly see how really truly lonely he is. So when Deku says that, it's understandable. Obviously, I can get that just straight ahead and things like that, but I could see why people said I wish a backstory was kind of been shown or we got more stuff to enhance that moment. So then, okay, when Deku says you're a lonely man, we get it. Although we still get it, it would have probably helped it out. But you can chalk all that stuff up, and I'm not gonna lie to say like this chapter, this conclusion, it did feel a little bit rushed. And maybe it's just because, plain and simple, Horikoshi just wants to end the story because we know his health is bad, and at this point, he probably just wants to end the story, be done with it, and not have to deal with Weekly Shonen Jump at this, I guess, current point in time, unless his next work comes out. So, for people, I guess, that are saying that the chapter is obviously rushed or things like that, and it's not ending the way that they probably wanted it to end, well, listen, usually. You got to look at the past few weeks of Horikoshi. The man's health has been absolute dog crap. And again, we know people in the culture in Japan is terrible, whether it's the anime culture in terms of the animation staff, or even the manga staff. These people in Japan, these head honchos, they overwork these workers, basically to the bone, to the part that they basically die from the work that they do. And while these head honchos basically reap all the benefits and all the money off of it, these people are putting basically all the hard work and everything, and they basically get paid nothing for everything that they do to make sure that these animes and these mangas that we read and watch, are really damn good, and we enjoy them on a week-to-week basis. Like, again, if you're living under a rock and you don't know the freaking workplace culture that is in Japan and when it comes to their manga and their anime industry, well, it's like you need to really look into that and see how badly these people are getting overworked and they're not getting appreciated for their work. And basically the head honchos in those representative companies, whether it's Shueisha or Toei or any other animation studio or mangas, publisher, they reap the benefits of that and they make all the money from that and everything while these people work their asses off. So I don't blame Horikoshi from ending it. Like, I always had a feeling like he was going to end it eventually. He just drew it out. He just tried to draw it out as much as he possibly could. But at the end of the day, there was really nothing else to say because it's like at this point, it's like you were hoping like this final battle were to end and things like that. So, and really there was nothing else to draw out about. Like, what else are you going to get? Just, you got to get the one epic final clash moment. So, yeah, some people may feel like, okay, this whole thing was anticlimactic, but listen, leave that to your own interpretation. I just chalk it up that Horikoshi wants to finish this, and yeah. So look, I don't know how many more chapters My Hero Academia's got. We're probably gonna get an epilogue, and then we'll probably get a final chapter conclusion and maybe a final chapter announcement too, because I know like Eden Zero, I don't read Eden Zero, but I gotta get back to watching the anime. But I know like for that, like their last chapter is coming up, so there will probably be an announcement when the last chapter for MHA is coming. Again, we'll probably get like post-war epilogue stuff, characters recoveries and things like that. you know We'll probably get a time skip, more than likely, far off into the future, which is probably Deku maybe telling this class his story, which it'd be pretty cool to see if it's like, okay, Deku's a teacher at UA now. A lot of time has passed, like maybe 20 years had passed or something like that. Or maybe, I don't say 20 years, but maybe like 10 years had passed. He's a teacher at UA like All Might was. And he's basically telling his class, like, hey, this is how I did this story and everything. Or maybe he's just teaching this class or telling this class his life story, and what it took for him to become a hero and everything. Like maybe it's like their first day in the class and everything. But it would be cool to see like a young Eri and young Kota in the class who already somewhat know his story, but not to the depths that he went through. But it would be cool, like, okay, maybe this like is his first class he's teaching. A student asks him like, hey, what does it take to become a hero or something like that? And maybe Deku explain his life story to the class or something like that. And then who knows, maybe we could finally get the confirmations on potential ships, because that's going to be controversial as hell. Maybe we get certain confirmations, maybe certain confessions and things like that. I would hope that after this is all done, hopefully, whenever Deku and Ochako see each other, I hope like Ochako finally has the guts to confess to Deku finally, now that he's going to be a big time hero, and things like that. So yeah, I would envision we're going to be seeing certain ships finally confirmed and epilogues and things like that and stuff like that. But yeah, listen, before I get out of here, my overall thoughts since the final battle has concluded, my overall thoughts on this war arc. I still like the first war arc, which is basically see the content from the season 6 in terms of the anime. Look, at the end of the day, this final arc had its controversies. Obviously, I have mine. I personally think Bakugo should have died. It would have just it would have made more of an impact to the story that Bakugo sacrificed his life. So then it can help in a way of Deku becoming a hero and everything. I thought they missed the boat on All Might dying, because they teased that for the longest time. They teased he would die, and they never fully went through with that. I know people were upset to the fact that Endeavor probably should have died, and that could have been his whole redemption moment. And that's kind of like, okay, I'm taking Toya down with me, and everything, and this is the actions of my sins, and I did this to my son. I'm gonna go down in hell with my son, essentially. I know some fans were upset that Endeavor didn't kick the bucket. I do agree that maybe there should have been one important death, and it could have been between one of those three. It didn't have to be all three of them, but one of those three. Honestly, it's like when they did the whole Bakugo revival thing, I was kind of a little bit ticked off because it made no sense, and that's probably the most controversial thing. When you look back at My Hero Academia 10 years down the road, and you rewatch or reread the series, you'll be like, I wish Horikoshi just didn't get cold feet and just went through with Bakugo's death. It's like how I know Fairy Tail's not a liked anime or like series. I like the Fairy Tail stuff. Spoilers for Fairy Tail if you haven't seen it, but the master of the Fairy Tail Guild in the final arc, they had a fake death moment where, okay, he was supposed to die, but then the author kind of got cold feet, and then he brought him back to life. But he should have stayed dead, because it would have actually made a huge impact of those characters within the guild, like Anatsu, Urza, Gray, and everything, and it would have only made their bond stronger, and then be able to overcome the evil villain at that time, um, to be able to be like, all right, here's what I gotta do. You know, my master died for me, and you know, blah 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 blah. All this crazy stuff's happening in their war arc. He could have died, and then you know, when the series ends, that's when they could lead a new fairy tale for the next generation, and it's gonna be their fairy tale from the teachings of what their master taught them. So, you know, I do feel like one impactful death could have helped because it would have rose the stakes and everything, but you know, I feel like Horikoshi missed the boat on there, and I felt like I'm not trying to say he got afraid, but you can make the case he might have got afraid that, okay, maybe one of these big characters, I might get shit for killing one of them off, but it's like, okay, you should have just went with the safe pick and just would have killed All Might off because it would have made sense. And then it's not like he would be completely dead because he'd be automatically going to the vestige world. And then we could have potentially saw his vestige be able to also help in this whole finishing off all one for all for good. So that's kind of the thing and stuff like that. But you know, I will say, maybe one of these days when My Hero Academia completely finishes, I'll go back and maybe do a top arc video and things like that in terms of what are my favorite arcs of the series and what is my top 5 and then my top 3. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I think my favorite arc of the entire series has to be that first war arc. You know, it just changed the game and it changed the landscape of the series going forward after that point. Like, that was the turning point arc of the series where it went from a happy-go-lucky show to a pretty damn dark story, to where it's like, damn, the entire tone of the series changed. And I bet you that Horikoshi probably wanted to dwell on that a little bit longer than what he probably had to do, but you know, obviously with that weekly time, not a lot to put in. But anyways, if you like this video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more My Hero Academia content. I reviewed season 7 of the manga weekly, season 7 of the anime weekly, and I'll probably also do some manga chapter reviews of the last remaining chapters we'll get. I don't know how many chapters we got. I'm saying 4 to 5 chapters, maybe 6, but we'll see. Anyways, hit the subscribe button. Until then, guys, peace.